Hello everyone, my name is Ashish and welcome to the Xadmin channel. So this is the fourth session in the core Java interview question series. And in my last three sessions, I have discussed some basic core Java questions. And in this session, basically, I'm going to discuss regarding the OOPS concept. So this is the one of the important concept in core Java and and also the favorite topic in the interview to be asked by the interviewer. So before starting the lecture, I would like to suggest that watch this lecture till the end and also subscribe and hit the like button if you have not subscribed this channel yet. So let's move ahead with this session. So first question you may get, like what is OOPS in Java? So OOPS means object oriented programming language. So basically, OOPS is a concept in Java, and it is to improve the code readability and reusability by defining a Java program efficiently. So OOPS is a way of a programming where the complete software work as a collection of objects interacting with each other. So basically, it is a way of programming where the complete software work as a collection of object interacting with each other, right? So object oriented programming is a method used for designing a program using classes and object. So object oriented programming is also called as the core of a Java. Object-oriented programming organizes a program around objects and well-defined interfaces. So basically, it is a way of programming where it organizes a program around the object and well-defined interfaces. Or you can say that object-oriented programming is a methodology or a paradigm to design a program using classes and object. So classes and the object plays a like role for this concept. So what is a paradigm? So a programming paradigm is a way of thinking about and structuring a program functionality. So a programming paradigm is a classification or a style or a way of programming, right? It is an approach to solve the problem by using the programming like languages. So object-oriented programming is a way of programming where the complete software work as a collection of objects interacting with each other. So basically, in OOPS concept, the object play a vital role. With the help of the object, we are accessing the class and the class members, right? So OOPS is a methodology or a paradigm to design a program using classes and object. So this is regarding the OOPS concept in Java. Now let's move to the second question. You may get like what are the main feature of the OOPS? So this is the most important question you may get in the interview is like what are the main features of OOPS? So the main feature of the object oriented programmings are like class, object, methods, and and it has a four pillar of OOPS like encapsulation, also like polymorphism, inheritance, and abstraction. So we are going to so we are going in so we will go a detail in all these topics in our like further sessions. So yeah, so these are the main features of the object oriented programming, and like class, object, method, encapsulation, polymorphism, inheritance, and abstraction. So the next question you may get that what is a class in Java? So basically, a class in Java is a user-defined data type. So class is also a user-defined data type. So data type, so we have eight primitive data types, that is integer, float, character, boolean, dollar, double, and the float, right? So these are the primitive data type, but we have the another data type that is user defined data type. So data type which are defined by the user, that is called as a user defined data type. So class is a user defined data type. So it is a group of similar kind of entities. So it is a group of similar type of entities. And also we can say the collection of object is said to be a class. So the collection of the object is said to be a class. So class is a group of objects. So class are said to be a logical like quantities or the entity. So it is a logical entity. Class does not consume any space in the memory, and class is also called as a template of an object. So these are the definition of a class. So how we can define a class? In order to declare a class, we have to use a class keyword itself. So for example, here in the slide, you can see that we have to use this class keyword, and before that we use access modifiers, right? So there are like four type of access modifier: public, private, default, right? Yeah, so public, private, default, and private. So these are the access modifier, and after that we have to use the class keyword, and then we have to define the class name, and then we have to use the curly braces. So inside this curly braces we write the body. So for example, here you can see access modifier we use as a public, and the class keyword we have used, and this is the class name hello. And inside the curly braces we need to define the body of a class, and the body of the class can be it can contain like variables, method, and the other members. So this is an basic example of a class and how you are defining. So a class declare consists of. So what are the class content? So class can contain the modifier, right? So class has so class declaration has the modifier as we have seen, and there it can be public or a default access, and a class name. So we have to use a class keyword, and after that we have to use a class name. So this is the declaration of a class. And also we can use a superclass. So class can only extend subclass one parent class. So if we want to use the inheritance, then it can extend one like parent class, and for that we have to use extend keyword here after the class name. Here we write after hello we write extends, and then we write the parent class name. So with that it will use the inheritance property, and it will inheritance all the property of the parent class inside this hello class. So in the same way, in the declaration time, we can use interface also. So class can implement one more or more than one interfaces. So if the class want to implement interface, then here after hello, we need to provide implements and then the interface name. So it will implement interface, and also we can implement more than one interface, but we cannot extend more than one classes, because in Java it is not supporting multi inheritance, but we can achieve this multi inheritance with the help of interface. So for making a Java a simple language, the multiple inheritance with the class has been restricted. So the next declaration body will be the body. So body is surrounded by braces. So inside this like curly braces, we need to provide the body of a class. So this is the declaration of a class. So what is a class? Class is a collection of object. It is the blueprint, and and it is a user defined data type of a group of similar kind of entities. So these are the definition of a classes. So now let's move to the next question. What you may get, like what are the members of a class in Java? So basically, there are five members in a class. It will be like member variables, right? So member variables are like states, and also there can be method. So methods are also known as behavior of a class. So method can be of two type. It can be static method or instance method. So both has a different functionalities to be used, which we will discuss in our further lecture. But for now, just we are looking at the member of a class, right? So yeah, so there are two type of methods like static and instance. So static method can be called with the name of a class also, but for instance method to be called, we have to use the object of that class. So this is the main difference between a static and a instance method. So static methods can be called by the name of a class, and for calling a static method it is not required to create the object of a class, but for instance method it is required to create the object, and with that object only we can call this instance method. So the next member is like constructor. So inside the class we can define the constructor. So constructor are basically used to initialize the instance variables, right? So constructor main functionality is to initialize the instance variables. So the next member which we can define is like blocks. So inside the class we can define the blocks also, and the blocks are basically defined by the curly braces, which I will show you as an example in few minutes. So blocks can be of two type. There can be instance block and there can be static block. So instance block are defined without any static keyword with a curly braces, but a static block must be start with a static keyword and then curly braces, and inside the curly braces we have to define the work of that block. So basically so we have a method and then we have a block. So why these two then why the block has been introduced if there is a method, and in the method we know we write the job for which we want uh, to do the job, right? So method has some work to do, but that same thing we can use inside method. But why a block has been introduced? So block is like so in method we define a full fledged of job, but in block we can, if we want to do a certain a small kind of work, then or we want to run a small piece of code, then we can use a block. So let's say I want to load certain classes. So basically a static block is used in a database connection when we want to load certain classes before loading my class. So for that we can use a static block, and the static block loads when our class get load. So first static block and the static variables get space in the memory before the instance block and the instance variable, right? So block is used to do a small piece of code, or we want to run a small piece of code, then block is used. So the next member is like inner classes. Yeah, of course we can define classes inside a class. So classes inside a class is called as an inner class, right? So these are the five members which we can define in a class. So let's see a full example of the member, that how we can define. So here you can see I have prepared one example for you, uh, uh, like a class. So this is like public is the modifier, access modifier, and this is the class keyword here, and the class name is human. Okay, and this is the curly braces started. So here we need to define the body. So this is the body of a class, right? Now let's see. So this is a private string name. So name is a member variable for this human class, and this is a instance variable. Okay, so the next I have defined in the fourth line is public static integer count. So this is the count static variable of integer type, and here you can see the access modifier is public. So this is the instance variable. So this is the instance variable, and this is the static variable, and by this way we define in a class. So this is the instance variable, this is static variable, and here you can see the constructor. So constructor name will be the same as a class name, and constructor is basically used to initialize our instance variable. So here you can see that I am initializing the instance variable with the name, right? And in constructor you have to keep in mind that we don't provide any return type, because constructor is only used to initialize the instance variable. It is not used to return any value uh, like a method. So this is our constructor, and this is the example of a method. So inside class we can define a method. So this is the access modifier, and this is a return type. So in the method we define the return type, but here we are defining void. Otherwise we can define integer, string, double, float, character, or any type of primitives data type. But here we are defining void, so it will not return anything. And this is the name of the method, and then we provide to break it, and this is the curly braces. So this is the like example of a method, and this is the example of an instance variable. Sorry, this is the example of an instance block. So here you can see we are not so we have just mentioned a curly braces. So this is the block. So this block will run. So now the question comes, when this block will run, right? As we cannot run this block with the help of the object, but this block will get executed when we create the object of the class. So as the object of this class is created, so this class will get the memory. So this class will get load in the in the main memory. So at that time this instance block will get called. Okay, and now we have a static so we have a static block. So this is the example of a static block. So a static block contains a static keyword and then curly braces, right? So now we can see that this is the inner class. This is example of the inner class. So inside a class we can define an inner class also. Private class inner. So inner is my inner class name, and then we can define the methods and the instance variables also inside our inner class. And this is our main method, and inside the main method I have created the object of this human class, and then with that object or with that instance I am calling this method dream, right? So this is a small example in which I have shown you the members of a class. So we can use like this type of members here, right? So now let's move to the next question, that is, what is object in Java? So basically, to access the member of a class in Java, an object is required to be created. So object is also known as instance of a class. So you can say it is an instance of a class, and the multiple number of object can be created for a class, right? So in order to create an object, we need to use the new keyword. So with the help of the new keyword, we create the object of a class. So as in the previous few minutes ago, we have seen that we have created the object of the human class by writing like human, and then instance name equals to new. So we have used the new keyword, and then we have used the constructor of that human class, right? So with the help of the new keyword we create the instance or the object of a class. So object is some memory location in which each and every type of information of a class can be stored in a digital code format. So what is an object? Basically object is some memory location. So when we create an object of a class, it means that we are occupying some memory space in a main memory, and there the information, so the every information of the class will be stored in that particular memory location. So that is called an object. And with that object, we can access the class members or all the members variables, right? So an object is used to access the member of a class from outside the class. So this is object. So basically an object is some memory location in which each and every type of information of a class can be stored in a digital code format. So now the question comes, what does the object consist of? So basically the object consists of these three parts: state, behavior, and identity. So state represent object attributes. So there we have object attributes, so that is represent by a state. It also reflect the property of an object. So in the class we have like attributes, like we have defined the attribute name and the count. So all these are attributes of a class, and it is stored in a object, right? So object consists of behavior. So behavior represent an object method. So basically a class has a method, so that is a behavior, right? So object consists the behavior or a method information. It also reflect the response of an object with other objects. So the next, the object contain identity. It keeps an unique name of an object and enables one object to interact with other objects, right? So it has an entity, it is a unique name by which we can represent an object of a class. So for a class, we can create n number of object, right? So this is all about object. Yeah. So in this session, I have discussed some of the important questions for the OOPS concept, and in the next session we are going to discuss all these four pillar of the OOPS concept in detail, and also we are going to see what type of interview questions we may get regarding this topic: encapsulation, polymorphism, inheritance, abstraction, in our next session. So thank you, and see you in the next lecture.